Good morning. You sound like the only one. There is more than one person here besides me. We are on week 77 of the Life of Christ for Bible engagement. We didn't have Bible engagement last week. There was a lot of stuff going on that Sunday, so we didn't get the opportunity to get started. So you all didn't miss anything being on vacation. Good to see you back. And all in one piece, and praise God for that. We've had a lot going on in the last little bit here at the church with people going through a lot of different things. Just keep them in our prayers, especially Everett. I'll probably during the church kind of touch base with everybody how everything's going there. But be in prayer for him and for Joey. They've got a long road ahead of them. He is probably going to be in there, I think, about a month. I think it is pretty close to it.
She's not saying, so I don't know.
Yeah. Way they were talking whenever they were talking about their treatments. Yeah, I think for the next 4 weeks he's going to be in there, at least. So keep him in your prayers. He is going to go stir crazy because he does not stop. So this is.
He's always on the go.
Yeah, he's enjoyed the vacation the last couple of days, but by Monday I think he's going to be ready to get out of there. So so just be in prayer for him. I told him he said I had to get out of the hospital because we got a bathroom to finish. We ain't got time for all this. And which he made him feel good because he loves stuff like that. So anyway. That being said, we're on week 77 and of the Life of Christ, and that just did not work. Hang on.
Well, that's your fault, that fault.
Well, yeah, everything's my fault.
We know.
We still love you, though.
We don't.
I still love you, though.
Well, I'm glad you do. At least somebody does. So 2 weeks back, we saw that Judas was upset that an expensive oil was used on Jesus instead of being sold, that the money was being used for the feed the poor, which was really not Judas's motive because Judas had become greedy. He was more than likely taking from because he was kind of the treasurer, he was taking from the treasury. He didn't like the idea that money was being spent. During that time period, the chief priests and elders were conspiring to kill Jesus. And I think it's mentioned in Scripture because of him being, upset about this oil was kind of a catalyst to bring him to this next step. Judas then goes to the chief priests and elders with a plan. And for 30 pieces of silver, he agrees to betray Jesus. Just to kind of put this in perspective, 30 pieces of silver is roughly anywhere from, and this is a pretty good span here, because as we all know, silver and gold is volatile as far as what the market is. Anywhere from $91 to $441. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this day and time, $441 is a lot, but it's not a lot. It doesn't go very far.
It's a lot when you don't have it.
It's a lot when you don't have it, but it don't go very far whenever you're in the store. You go and buy a steak and you're probably done. You're broke. But 440, they actually, when you read the rest of the story, you find out that they used the money to buy a parcel of land after he killed himself. They used that money to buy a parcel of land. We can't buy land for $100, $500, So it wasn't much. It was, in the grand scheme of things for what he did, it was not much money at all. Now we come to Thursday night. We are now on Thursday night of the last week of Christ. The events of that evening were the turning point of the ultimate moment of Christ's sacrifice. Everything's about to come to a head. It's been said that Leonardo, and we have, and this is what takes place is what we call the Last Supper. It's been said about Leonardo da Vinci when he was painting the Last Supper, he became angry with the man and threatened him. And Da Vinci returned to paint the face of Jesus, and he realized he was harboring bitterness and was forced to put down his brushes and go make amends with the man. Only then did he have the inner peace he needed to depict the face of Jesus. Now, this is, how, true this is. I don't know. This was something that was recorded in a history of some sort. We have to understand, though, that point is that Jesus does impact our lives. And what Jesus did in the next part of this, of the gospel, has compelled people to change. And so he affected the world then, and he's affecting the world now. Matthew chapter 26 is where we're going to be at today. We will go to Luke 22 at one point. But Matthew 26, it says, on the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, that's verse 17, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you the verse. Matthew 26:17. I'll start that again. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover? He replied, go into the city to a certain man and tell him, the teacher says, my appointed time is near. I'm going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house. So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover. Now, it's really interesting because, we look at this and Jesus didn't wait for an invitation. He just said, go tell this guy I'm meeting at his house. And, that takes some guts. How many of you would like it if I walked up and said, I'm eating at your house today after church? Some people have been like, fine, you're right. As long as I bring the food. Yeah. You bring the food, Pastor, you can come eat all you want. But, that meant that the thought process that he was able to do that. But, the reality is that he, being God, is all-knowing. You stop and think about it. It's just amazing that happens. We'll get into that maybe a little bit more here. The Last Supper took place on what was called the first night of the 8 days set aside in the Jewish calendar to celebrate the Feast of Passover and unleavened bread. Now, Passover is a celebration of the Israelites' deliverance from Egyptian bondage. Only the Jews, if you'll recall, only the Jews that smeared the lamb's blood on their doorways were spared the wrath of the last plague, which was the death angel coming over and killing the firstborn. And at that time, leaven was removed from the bread for this 7-day Passover feast as a symbol of the blood that was completely removed from the Passover lamb. That's why they didn't put yeast in it. It was faster to make the bread without the yeast, because if you've ever cooked with yeast, you know that you have to go through a process. You all use yeast in your dough, don't you?
Yeah, it automatically,
Mm-hmm. Oh, you all got the quick.
It makes it rise.
Yeah, so you don't have to.
Activate it with the oil and all that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you have to let it set and rest for so long?
5 minutes before you pour it in on the flour to mix it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So your alls act so fast that you don't really have to go through that process.
No, it's all mixed in one bag.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Because typically if you use yeast, what you'll do is you'll put yeast in something and then you have to let it set for so long of a period of time and do its thing. Then you have to come back and do some more work, and it's a process.
It takes about 5-6 minutes.
For you guys.
To activate it.
Yeah.
Pour it on that flour, to make the dough.
Yeah. So yeast is not normally, in her case, it is a little bit faster, but yeast is not normally a fast reacting thing. It takes time. And so as a result of that, you see that, they were going to be in a hurry. They had to pack up and leave pretty fast. They didn't have a lot. But also I thought was interesting is that, it was symbolic of that blood, because they had to drain the blood when you prepare an animal after you have killed it for eating. You have to drain its blood, those kinds of things. And so it was for that purpose. That was part of that was prophesying the sacrifice of the Messiah to come. Now, the end of the festival of unleavened bread begins the grain harvest. So you've got the beginning of it as a celebration of our remembrance of what God did to deliver them from Egypt. It was a prophecy of Christ's coming as the Messiah and sacrificing for us. And not only that, but at the end of that time comes the harvest. So we see those three things are taking place there. And Christ brings a harvest to the earth for our souls. Now, John chapter 4, verse 35 tells us to open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. That's Jesus telling them, we got to be ready. We need to get out and work and do the things that God has called us to do. I was listening to a video this morning while I was waiting for Jess to get ready. And it was this preacher had made the statement that, I hear Christians complain when they go to a church that nobody talked to them and nobody approached them and nobody was friendly with them and, and that kind of thing. And that happens. I've never been real happy with people in the church that don't do that. They should get out but he made the statement, and I never thought of it this way, and I thought he made a really good point. He said, when you go to a strange church, you're expecting them to come to you and talk to you, but in reality, you are a Christian, and everywhere you go, you should be willing to talk to those you come in contact with. Oh, you do. And he said, because that your job is to try to show them Jesus. You don't know whose life you're going to impact. And to Russell's statement, Russell sometimes has had problems with his bike and then end up having to go a different way or whatever, and ended up at a gas station and talked to somebody and ended up sharing the gospel with them. We're so skittish to talk to anybody a lot of times. And I'll be honest with you, we went through a phase here in the church, and I had some people come to me one time that were attending this church, had been attending this church for a while, and I'm just going to put people's names just for the sake of it. We'll say it was Sandra shows up. First time she'd ever showed up. And Judy over here is like, Sandra showed up, she didn't even talk to me. Now, that never happened, okay. But there were, I don't think they like me. I had to get up from the pulpit and tell everybody in church, listen, this is your home. When people come through that door, you don't need to be judging whether they like you or not. You need to be going up to them and talking to them and saying, listen, because they want to know if you like them. You blow up over there, and I'm not cleaning up the mess. Exactly. You got to get out there and do the work. But anyway, I don't want to get on too much soapbox here because I ain't got a whole lot of time. So Jesus is keeping with the Passover. He kept the Jewish feast throughout. That was one of his main things. You got enough to drink there? I said, you got enough to drink there. Comes in with an armload of Coke, He's keeping with Passover, and the disciples ask him where to make preparations, and he instructs them, go into the city to a certain man and tell him, the teacher says, my appointed time is near. I'm going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house. Now, this isn't out of the ordinary for Jesus. Because remember, just a few days back, although I know that it's been weeks since I covered that part, but just a few days back in this story, Jesus was getting ready to come into Jerusalem for his triumphant entry. And what did he do? He said, go find this colt tied. And if someone comes and approaches you and says anything, say, Jesus is needing it here. And I'm paraphrasing the story, but, this was not beyond the scope of what Jesus would do. And Luke gives a little more detail on how this went down for the Passover. In Luke chapter 22, verses 7 to 13. It says, then came the day of unleavened bread on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. And Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover. He said, where do you want us to prepare for it? They asked. He replied, as you enter the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. He actually tells them, you will find a man carrying a jar of water. He'll meet you. When you meet him, follow him to the house that he enters. And say to the owner of the house, the teacher says, where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large room upstairs, all furnished. Make preparations there. They left and found things as Jesus had told them, and so they prepared the Passover. I mean, this shows the knowledge of God, the power of God, God being in action here. And let's just stop for a minute. We have to realize that God puts a lot of things in place in our lives, that when we come up to those things and we wonder, how in the world did that door open, or how in the world did that situation happen, and realize that God has intervened. And it was God had that plan the whole time. It's just amazing to see that. Now that Allison's back, we can go back and cover that part that talked about her. And I'm just so in back to Matthew chapter 26, verses 20 to 22, we see they've come in and now they're getting ready to have the Passover feast. It says, when the evening came, verse 20, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, truly I tell you, one of you will betray me. They were very sad and began to say to him, one after the other, surely you don't mean me, Lord. So he gets in there and he's telling them, one of you guys, you ain't all you cracked up to be. One of you is going to betray me. And they were surprised that one of them would betray Jesus. And I'll be honest with you, that's not beyond the scope of things, because, how many times have you seen someone in the church do something or whatever, and you're like, I couldn't believe they would do something like that. Or somebody in life, I couldn't believe they would do something like that. And in reality, we have to understand that, these people are going through, I lost my train of thought. These guys, they were together every day of the week, and yet they didn't have a clue that Judas had taken off and had already made a plan. We don't always notice what's going on around us, do we?
It happens so often.
Huh?
It happens so often.
Oh, it does. And in this day and age, it's even more so.
We got so much going on in our mind about focus on one,
Mm-hmm.
It's like you got blinders on, you don't realize.
Yeah. You got that happening, and then you got the electronics.
Oh, yeah.
I saw something the other day. I watched this guy, Southern Boys Outdoors. They do a lot of Cajun cooking and stuff like that. I think I was born in Kentucky, but I should have been born in Louisiana. I like jambalaya. I like crawfish. I like.
Did you handle the heat, though?
Huh?
Did you handle the heat?
Well, I can handle it to a degree. Some of it I have to back it off a little bit, but not. But you give me some jambalaya, you give me some crawfish. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna make y'all. I don't make me hungry. I might not make y'all hungry. And gumbo. I like gumbo. Man, gumbo's good. And so, I mean, but these guys, I watch some of these cooking things and what they do, and I'm like, this is, and he happened to be doing a reel where he was going down the interstate, and there was a car, his bumper was hanging by just one little spot, and it was dragging behind him, and they were trying to get the people's attention in the car to let them know their bumper was coming off. And the people, when they got by there, they were looking at their phones like this, going down the road. And, it's like I can't even get their attention. So he just moved his truck on over away from them just in case that bumper come off and went on about his business because there wasn't nothing else he could do. We're distracted by so much we don't see what's going on around us. Now, we see here that although they didn't know who the traitor was, Jesus did.
He knew way before him.
Oh yeah, he knew probably the day he chose him, and even before that. But here's the thing. This shows one attribute of God, and that's his omniscience, is what it's called, which is all knowing. And, seeing that attribute of God, knowing that he's all knowing, and we forget that about God. We wonder, why did this certain thing happen in our life? And then later on, have you ever done that? Something happened to you, and then later on you're like, now I know why that happened. I didn't like it when it happened, but now I understand why it happened, and I'm thankful it did. Ever had that happen in your life? Yeah. It's like, I wasn't happy about it then, but now I get it. Well, we don't have the foreknowledge of what's going to take place down the road, but Jesus does. God does. He's all-knowing. And we have to remember that he already knows our sins. That he knows the intent of our heart before we ever say or do anything. And he also knows when we'll commit them.
I heard say, God knows what you're going to do before you even think about it.
Yeah. And then you hear people go, well, why don't it just stop us? And then you go, well, what about free will? Well, but, that's, yeah, but you don't want nobody forcing you to do anything. We'll get off that soapbox. All right. So it was no surprise that Jesus knew Judas' betrayal before it happened. We go on to verses 23 to 25, and it says, Jesus replied, the one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born. Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, surely you don't mean me, Rabbi. Yeah, mic drop. And Jesus answered, you have said so. And his guilt was getting the best of him at that point in time. And then he's trying to deflect that attention off of him. And he goes, you said so. We also need to realize that it was also during the Last Supper. And we'll get into the Last Supper a little bit deeper next week. But it was during the Last Supper that Jesus warns Peter that he would deny him. We see in verses 31 to 35 of 26, Jesus told them that very night, you will all fall away on account of me, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee. And Peter replied, even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. And this would be another place where you could say, mic drop. I've learned in my relationship with God, never say, I never will.
Because you'll eat them words.
You will eat them words, especially in the ministry. My dad one time said, I'll never fall out in the spirit when the preacher prays for me. It ain't never going to happen. He goes to a men's meeting in Florence, Kentucky. He gets up there and he's at the altar. Preacher walks by, just touches his head, and boom, he's gone. He said, when I woke up, I was like, well, I guess I was wrong. I mean, you know, we see these kinds of things. I tell you, saying never is going to get you in trouble.
That's what Dave says about kids.
Huh?
That's what Dave says about kids. He said, I never wanted any, now I got 4.
I never wanted it, I got 4. Jesus goes on and says, truly I tell you, Jesus answered, this very night before the rooster crows, you'll disown me 3 times. But Peter declares, even if I have to die with you, I'll never disown you. And all the other disciples said the same. But, you know, we all make those claims, but when the rubber meets the road, what happens with us? He goes on in Luke 22 to kind of give us a little bit more detail on it. He says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you all of you as wheat, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. See, we all get sifted as wheat, but Jesus is praying that we can hold on to the faith. We got him in our corner praying for us. He's interceding for us. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. He tells him, there's going to come a time you're going to turn back, and when you do, strengthen your brothers. He replied, Lord, I'm ready to go with you to prison and to death. And Jesus says, I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times that you know me. Deny 3 times that you know me. Then we see that another little event that happened that I'm going to touch base on real quick. The disciples get into an argument during the Last Supper. There's a dispute rises. It's in Luke 22, verses 24 to 30. I'm not going to read the details. I'm going to skim it real quick. But the dispute rose among them over who would be considered the greatest. And Jesus, just like us, during an important time in our lives, we find a reason to make it all about us. And Jesus sets them straight. He basically tells them, it ain't about that. He said, for who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? It's not the one who's at the table, but I'm among you as one who serves. And, Jesus, what Christ was doing was the ultimate in serving others. And he was about to die for all of us. And if we are faithful, we'll get to reign with him. So it isn't about how great we are. It is about how great he is. And we need to put him and focus on him. Now, we'll get more in depth on the Last Supper next week. The spiritual aspect, get into the garden, kind of talk about that and the rest. There's a lot of moving parts there, so I don't know how much will get covered. But, we've gotten this far in detail. We might as well get a little bit more detail as we go. Any questions or comments? All right. God bless.